Since 2002, there have been 5 rounds of closings. The only year they took a year off was the year that Mayor Daley was up for re-election. This is the first year that the board has actually backed off their plans, and we have to ask the reason why they do that. And the reason they did it is because that we've had massive protests, and lo and behold, now they have taken 6 schools off the list. That's been a victory. I think it means that Mayor Daley and the political powers that be in Chicago have to recognize the size and depth of the anger and protest, and this is an attempt to co-opt it and to convince us that the process works. But you know what this really does is it gives us confidence in our own power to change things, and we're going to keep protesting.
We are here to protest the Board of Education's upcoming vote to close down 16 of our schools here in Chicago. Today is a culmination of month-long activities in protest of the Board of Education's arbitrary decisions to close more of our schools in Chicago as part of Renaissance 2010.
The research that we've done makes it very clear that there is no solid basis at all for the decisions that the board is making. They're talking about closing schools for being underutilized, yet when we look at schools, we see that some of the schools that are talking about actually are utilized in an educationally appropriate way. So we would really have to look very closely at each of the schools and see what their utilization is. Secondly, these schools are small schools, and the education research is very clear that small elementary schools are what are productive. These big schools, built for 1,000, 1,200 kids, were built for a factory model of education, which no longer exists. So actually they're using the buildings very well. So I don't understand why CPS would close schools for underutilization. So we really need to look much more closely at that. The second thing is that the turnaround model is not a proven educational intervention. There is no research to support it. It is an experiment. It's an idea which is now being rolled out into school after school without any data to support it. In fact, one of the schools, Holmes, which is taken off the list, was improving at the same rate as Sherman, which is the model of the turnaround school. So that's a very dangerous thing to do. And I want to say to the press and to the public to be very clear that closing a school or evacuating all the adults in a building is an incredibly serious decision to be made. I could see doing it if the building was so filled with asbestos or falling down around people's heads that there was no choice. But in fact, to close a school for under-enrollment or to turn it over to a turnaround agent that's completely unproven and unsubstantiated is extremely dangerous and destabilizing to communities, black and brown communities that are already facing poverty, racism, disinvestment, and a lot of destabilizing housing conditions, homelessness. These schools are the center of these communities. The third thing in our report is that it is very clear that there is not a community process here. There is no consultation with people in communities. There is no discussion. People find out 3 or 4 weeks before their school is to be closed. They have no time to prepare. They've not been consulted. Principals were told at the hearings, and you should investigate this. Principals were told at the hearings that they could not even see the evidence that CPS was presenting and that they would have to file a Freedom of Information Act to do so. So we have a process in which the community, the teachers, the students have not been consulted about something that's profoundly affecting them. And there is no educational basis. Frankly, I think it reflects the incompetence of CPS and the negligence of CPS, and this process should be stopped now. So I really agree with the people here today that there should be a moratorium on this. The board should, of course, vote no today, and there should be a moratorium on this process until we can conduct a really serious investigation.
This process is not fair because it's not incorporating the students, the parents, and the community voice. And I think that the students should be the ones that have the most voice in this because we're the ones that's being affected. We're the ones that you're closing school down. We're the ones that's not going to get our education, that's not going to be educated, and not going to be able to go to college because we have no education. We have to travel throughout these distances is to go to these different schools and go through different gang territories and stuff, and that's why the rate of death of young teens are going up, because we are steadily crossing this. And majority of my parents have family members that has gotten shot because they have to go a long distance to school, and this is not doing nothing but causing trouble for the city of Chicago. And it's I'm asking for a moratorium on this because I'm just trying to help them save their jobs.
Even though we don't have any schools closing in our community, we are here today in solidarity with the other communities because we have had this happen to us. And what we experience is that this process is unfair and leaves us out and leaves a bad taste in the parents and students' mouths. And for the after effects of these decisions that the board is going to do today, they have not even acknowledged those people's complaints. They confessed today in the Board of Education meeting that they had not read all the hearings and the testimonies from these parents, students, and teachers who are concerned about the livelihood of their children. This is not a process that includes us, and it makes us feel insignificant. Therefore, it is the death of public education when the public is not served and when the public is neglected, and that's why all of these groups are in solidarity today. Even if your school is not closed, people are here. People were here overnight, spending the night because this is it. We don't want this to happen anymore. There are children being displaced, children in fear of their lives, and yet again, they didn't even read the hearing testimonies from the people being affected. That is a shame, and the state legislators need to step in and do something about it because our cries are being unheard. We are the constituents of the city of Chicago, and no one even reads our testimonies. This is an outrage.
What we've seen in these the 22 schools that were initially proposed is an arbitrary criteria. If you look at Peabody, which was on the original list, over 69% of the students were meeting or exceeding standards on those tests, and the board still decided to close it. The only crime that these students, these parents, these teachers, and community members committed was having a school in a rapidly gentrifying area. This has nothing to do with education of our students. And we're here and we're not going to stop because we still have 16 more schools on the chopping block slated for closeout, phase-out, consolidation, and the infamous turnaround model. All of these models fall into Renaissance 2010, which is a program that is not informed by educators, not informed by academics, not informed by stakeholders, but informed by the business community.
From here, we will all march in a funeral procession to the Thompson Center. We will be delivering a letter to Speaker of the House Michael Madigan, Senate President John Cullerton, and Senate Education Chair James Meeks. We are calling for their support and their leadership in ensuring that State Representative Cynthia Soto's House Bill 363 passes the House and the Senate. House Bill 363 calls for a one-year moratorium on school closings, turnarounds, phase-outs, and consolidations. This has already passed the House Elementary and Secondary Education, and we want to remind them that we are counting on their leadership for this legislation to pass. Thank you.
We went to City Hall and delivered a letter to Mayor Daley, the person who appoints the Chicago Board of Education members. And we said that we want something done about the negative effects of Renaissance 2010 and the bad process for closing our Chicago public schools. He did not answer our letter and our march. Now we are here today in front of the Thompson Center, and we sent representatives in 15 minutes ago to deliver those letters to the House Speaker Michael Madigan, to Senator James Meeks, and to the Senate President John Cullerton. We delivered them, and you all are here right now. You are bearing witness to the delivery of that letter. They are not going to neglect us anymore. Did you see the tears of these parents who know that their lives and their children's lives are going to be affected? How many of you have already been affected by the school closings for the last 4 or 5 years? And now they're still going to neglect us? I'm telling you, this has got to be the last year. We have to call every single state representative,